Christmas night. Late. The kind of quiet that only comes when the world feels finished for the day. I was lying in bed when I felt it. That pressure in your chest that tells you not to move. I turned my head toward the bedroom window, and that's when I saw her. A woman, standing where no one should be. She wasn't inside the room. She wasn't outside the house. She was there. We locked eyes. She didn't move. She didn't blink. And the worst part, she wasn't looking for me. She was looking at the house. She didn't knock. She didn't come inside. She just watched us. Like she had been waiting for Christmas. If you're listening to this late at night, you're not alone. Winter has a way of making everything quieter. Sound doesn't travel the same. Thoughts get heavier. That night didn't come back to me all at once. It waited. For years, I didn't talk about her. Not because I forgot, but because remembering felt like inviting something back inside. This isn't a story I made up. There's no twist for shock. No ending designed to scare you. This is something I lived with. Something my family lived around. We learned early which questions not to ask. Which windows not to stand near. Which nights to stay quiet. Some families pass down recipes. Old photographs. Stories told every holiday. Ours passed down silence. Before anything strange ever happened, the house was just a house. An old one. Built in the 1800s. The kind of farmhouse that existed before roads had names. The land had been in the family for generations. So long that the boundaries stopped feeling official. Fields blurred into memory. Memory blurred into obligation. Our town grew outward from that place. Houses went up over time. Neighbors, cousins, strangers, all standing on pieces of what used to be the same ground. No one talked about that much, but everyone knew it. Inside, everything felt ordinary. Wood floors that complained at night. Hallways that stayed cold no matter how high the heat was. Doors that never slammed. They just closed themselves. Christmas always came early to that house. Garland on the banisters. A tree in the corner that leaned slightly, no matter how we tried to straighten it. And in the bedroom windows, facing outward, toward the land, were the statues. Mary, Jesus, white stone, worn smooth in places from age. They were always there. As far back as I can remember, we weren't allowed to move them, not to dust, not to play, not even to turn them, just for a second. Don't touch them. No reason given, no warning, just instruction. The adults made sure they stayed facing the windows, facing out, not toward us. If one ever shifted, even slightly, someone would notice. They'd come in quietly, fix it, and leave without saying a word. As kids, we didn't think of it as fear. It was just another rule, like not standing in certain doorways, like not looking outside too long after dark. Questions didn't get answers in that house. They just disappeared. So we learned the shape of the silence, learned where it lived, learned how to step around it. And for a long time, that was enough. The first time I felt it, I didn't call it fear. Fear would have meant something was happening. This felt more like being noticed. It only happened in December. That was the first rule, though I didn't know it yet. The house could be loud all year. Summer storms, autumn wind, even January snow. But December nights were different. They listened back. I'd be in bed, staring at the ceiling, when the feeling would arrive fully formed. Not sudden, not sharp, just present, like someone standing behind you, without touching you. I'd turn my head toward the window. The curtains were always still, never moved, never parted, but the space behind them felt occupied. It didn't feel like something trying to get in. and it didn't feel like something already inside. It felt like something waiting for permission that never came. At first, I blamed reflections. Old glass does strange things at night. It bends light. It doubles shapes. But the reflections didn't behave correctly. They lagged. Just slightly. When I moved, they followed, but not immediately. Like they were deciding whether to copy me. Sometimes my reflection looked taller. Sometimes thinner. Once, it didn't look like me at all. I never told anyone that part. The cold came next. Not the kind that fills a room. Not drafts in the walls. This cold stayed close to the glass. If you reached out, your fingers would go numb faster than they should. The rest of the room stayed warm. Just that one place. Like the window was holding winter. On the wrong side. Still, nothing ever happened. No tapping. No footsteps. No voices. That made it easier to ignore. Old houses do that. Cold air settles. Your eyes play tricks at night. And because nothing escalated, we accepted it. But I started noticing the pattern. It only happened when the house was quiet. Not asleep. Quiet. TV off. Lights low. Everyone settled. Always after the decorations went up. Always after the statues were cleaned and placed back in the windows. Always when the land outside was dark enough to disappear. If you're listening to this right now, and you've ever felt something similar, that sense of being observed without proof, you understand why I stayed silent. And if stories like this matter to you, if you want to hear the ones people carry for years, before they finally speak, take a moment to subscribe. Because some stories don't get told twice. By the 3rd December, I stopped checking the window. I learned not to confirm it. Because confirmation made it stronger. But the feeling didn't stop. It adapted. It felt patient. And one night, standing in that room, watching an adult quietly straighten the statue of Mary, I noticed something. They didn't look afraid. They looked relieved. That was the moment. I should have asked why the statues were there. At some point, unease stops being vague. It sharpens. It organizes itself. That's how I knew something had changed. Because I could predict it. Same window. Same section of glass. Same place outside. Just beyond where the porch light could reach. And always the same time. Late. Not midnight. Not early. That narrow stretch of night. When the house felt awake but pretending not to be. The land reacted first. No insects. No distant dogs. No owls. Not silence like sleep. Silence like avoidance. The wind would stop mid-motion. Not slow down. Stop. Like something had stepped into its path. That's when the lights started flickering. Only the ones in that room. Only the strand closest to the window. The rest of the house stayed steady. Normal. As if the disturbance had a boundary. It refused to cross. I stood there one night, watching the reflection in the glass. And for the first time, it reacted. I leaned closer. The flickering slowed. I stepped back. It resumed. That was the moment curiosity died. Because curiosity assumes ignorance. This felt informed. It knew when I was looking. Not staring. Looking. There's a difference. The feeling behind the curtains intensified. Not stronger. Closer. Like it was adjusting its position. Without ever moving. I tried an experiment. I didn't look at the window. I focused on the floor. The wall. Anywhere else. The cold receded. The lights steadied. When I looked again, everything returned. Immediately. That's when I understood something. I didn't have words for yet. Attention was permission. Whatever was out there, it didn't want me to leave. It wanted me to stay exactly where I was. On Christmas Eve, the house felt smaller. Hallways closed in. Corners felt occupied. Adults moved differently. Quiet, efficient, avoiding windows. No one said why. No one had to. If you're still listening right now, and you feel that tightening in your chest, that's not coincidence. Stories like this don't scare you. They recognize you. So if you want to stay with me through this, through the parts people usually skip, subscribe. Not because it helps the channel, because you'll want to know how this pattern ends. By the 5th year, I stopped pretending it wasn't intentional. It waited for December. It waited for quiet. It waited for someone to notice. And it never crossed the glass. Never knocked. Never signaled distress. That was the most terrifying part. One night, I whispered, not loud enough for anyone else to hear, "I see you." The lights went out. Just in that room. Not flickered. Out. When they came back on, the cold was closer than it had ever been. Right up against the inside of the glass. As if something had leaned forward. It wasn't trying to come inside. It didn't need to. It was making sure we stayed where we were. Because something that guards a boundary isn't afraid of what's on the other side. And Christmas was coming again. The truth didn't come with a confession. No dramatic sit-down. No warnings. No solemn faces. It slipped out the way dangerous things often do. By accident. I was older by then. Old enough to recognize when adults changed the subject too fast. Old enough to notice how certain names made the room adjust. We were in the kitchen. Late morning. December again. Someone mentioned the neighboring house. The one built close enough that its windows could catch the same light at sunset. Just a passing comment. Hard to heat places like that, someone said. Built on old ground. And then my aunt, not looking at anyone in particular, said it, too casually. Well, she never really left. No one reacted. That was the first sign it mattered. I asked who she meant. The question landed wrong. Like I'd used a word we weren't supposed to remember. My aunt finally looked at me. Not surprised. Just tired. The woman, she said, who lived there before the land was divided. She told it like a fact everyone already knew. The original property had been one stretch of land. One house. One family. When they broke it up, when they decided to build another home next door, it was for her. A family member. An older woman. A widow. I think. No children. She lived alone. Closer to the edge of the land than anyone else. And when she died, no one noticed right away. They found her days later. Still in the house. Still facing the window. No one asked how long she'd been watching before that. She never left the land, my aunt repeated. Like it explained everything. Like it should. That's when I asked about the statues. I didn't mean to. It just happened. The room changed. Not dramatically, but enough. They're not decoration, she said. They went up after. After what? She didn't answer that part. Instead, she said something worse. They face outward for a reason. No one explained the reason. No one had to. The cold by the glass. The watching. The way attention made it react. The way adults enforced rules without fear. Only maintenance. The statues weren't meant to keep something out. They were meant to remind something where it belonged. And suddenly, Christmas made sense. Because if she never left the land, if she stayed where she had lived, then every December, we weren't being visited. We were being observed. And the statues weren't watching us. They were watching her. After the truth cracked open, nothing improved. That's the lie people believe, that understanding makes things better. Sometimes it just tells you how permanent the situation really is. We tried closing the curtains. Thick ones. Heavy fabric. The kind meant to block light, cold, and view. It didn't matter. The feeling stayed. Not behind the curtain. At the window, you could sense the exact spot where she stood. Like pressure in the air. Close your eyes. You could still point to it. So we left the lights on. All night. No shadows. No dark corners. The glass reflected the room back at itself. And still, sometimes the reflection wasn't empty. Not her directly. Just an interruption. A distortion where she should have been. Like the glass was remembering her. Even when she wasn't visible. I tried praying. Quietly. Not formally. Just words aimed at the space. The response wasn't anger. It was absence. The room went quieter than it had ever been. No house sounds. No wind. Even my breathing felt intrusive. Prayer didn't repel her. It removed everything else. No one talked about it anymore. Not even accidentally. Not even in fragments. We learned how to discuss Christmas without mentioning December nights. No one acknowledged seeing her, but no one removed the statues. That was the rule that mattered. They were cleaned every year, handled carefully, returned to the same place, facing outward, always outward. That's when she started getting closer, not stepping, not moving, just nearer. Each year, the distance shortened, from the edge of the light to just beyond it, from the yard to the space right outside the window frame. Her posture never changed, arms at her sides, head upright, waiting. But her face became clearer, not expressive, not emotional, just more defined, as if time was adjusting its focus. I stopped sleeping in December. Not fully. Sleep became something thin, fragmented. Christmas nights stretched unnaturally long. Hours felt padded. Clocks couldn't be trusted. They moved, but not convincingly. Sometimes I'd look away for what felt like minutes, and the time wouldn't change. Other times, hours vanished. Morning arrived without memory. Just exhaustion and the sense that something had stood there longer than I had. If you're listening this far in, you already know the feeling I'm describing. That awareness that escape isn't about doors. It's about attention. So if you're still with me, if you want to see where this finally breaks, subscribe. Not because this story needs an audience, but because you'll want to remember how it ends. By the 10th year, I stopped checking the window. I didn't need confirmation anymore. Her presence was as routine as snowfall, as expected as decorations. Christmas became the marker. Not joy, not family, just endurance. And the worst realization, the one I still can't explain, was this. She wasn't getting closer to the house. She was getting closer to me. Not following, not pursuing, just aligning. Because something that waits this long isn't impatient. It's certain. By the time that December came around, I already knew something was going to be different. Not because anything changed, but because nothing had. The house was prepared the way it always was. Statues cleaned, placed carefully, facing outward. No one said why. No one needed to. Christmas lights went up. The tree leaned slightly, as it always had. The land outside disappeared early into darkness. I remember thinking, this is the last year I pretend I don't know what's happening. Not as a decision, just a realization. That night, sleep never arrived. Not even the thin kind. The room felt filled, not crowded, occupied, like someone had taken their place and settled in. I didn't turn toward the window right away. I already knew where she was. Same window, same spot, closer than ever. When I finally looked, There was no reflection, no glass trick, no delay. She was simply there. Clearly, her face wasn't distorted, wasn't wrong. That was the worst part. She looked complete. Our eyes met, not accidentally, not briefly, deliberately, and nothing happened. No movement, no expression, just recognition. Then the glass fogged. From the outside, a slow bloom of breath spreading across the window pane. Measured, patient. She was breathing. Behind me, I felt it. The statues, not moving, but heavier, as if the air itself had thickened around them. Like they were bearing weight they weren't meant to carry alone. The space tightened, not shrinking, claiming. Every corner felt acknowledged, as though the room knew it was being observed too. And then, without words, I understood. She wasn't watching the house. She was watching the gathering. Christmas was never the trigger. It was the reminder. Lights in windows, voices inside, people staying late, families remembering themselves. She wasn't angry. She wasn't lost. She was waiting. To be included. To be acknowledged. Not invited in. Just remembered. What she wanted, what she would do, never became clear. That boundary held. It always did. We stayed like that for a long time. Me inside, her outside. Neither of us blinking. Neither of us moving. Minutes or hours passed. I can't be sure. Time didn't behave that night. It circled, hovered. Eventually, the fog faded. The cold eased. Not gone. Just withdrawn. She didn't leave. She never does. She simply became less immediate, like a presence stepping back into memory. When I finally turned away, the room released me. Slowly, reluctantly, morning came. The house returned to itself. Adults moved normally. No one mentioned the night. But the statues, they stayed exactly where they were. Because some things don't end. They settle. They wait. I never learned what she truly was. No one ever explained. And I never asked again. Because knowing her nature was never the point. Only this. She watches when families remember themselves. And she waits to be remembered too. I didn't leave the house right away. People like to imagine escape as something sudden. A door slammed, a bag packed, a final look back. It wasn't like that. I grew up. I aged out of that room. Life continued the way it always does. Quietly, and then, all at once. Years passed. The house stayed where it was. So did the land. And so did she. When I finally left for good, it wasn't because of fear. It was because leaving felt overdue. I didn't take much with me. Clothes, photos, memory doesn't fit in boxes. The statues stayed behind. No discussion, no debate. They belonged to the house, in a way I never did. I never asked what would happen to them when the house was empty. Some questions don't improve with answers. The land didn't change after I left. New families moved into neighboring houses. Children played in yards that used to be fields. Lights came on in windows that faced the same darkness. Most of them don't know the history. They just know it's quiet there. That December feels different. That some nights last longer than they should. I wonder sometimes if they feel it too. That subtle pressure. That sense of being observed. Without malice. Without urgency. Christmas still comes every year. Decorations go up. Families gather. Houses glow against the dark. The land remembers all of it. As for me, I don't look at windows the same way anymore. I don't like curtains open at night in December. And I don't believe Christmas is safe. Not because something bad always happens, but because something watches. And once you know you've been noticed, that knowledge doesn't stay behind. If this story stayed with you, if it followed you a little closer than you expected, subscribe, not for more fear, for the ones we carry quietly until someone finally listens. Some land doesn't forget. There's a difference between surviving something and leaving it behind. I survived that house. I survived those nights. But Christmas still arrives the same way it always did. Quietly, politely, as if nothing is wrong. Over the years, I've thought a lot about hauntings, about what it actually means to be unable to leave. Some spirits haunt houses, walls, rooms, but others haunt something much harder to escape. They haunt routines, dates on a calendar, moments people return to every year. Without thinking, Christmas isn't just a day, it's a signal. Lights in the dark, families gathered, windows glowing against land that remembers who stood there before. I used to believe she was trapped, bound to the property, the soil, the place where she lived and died. But now I'm not so sure. Sometimes I wonder if she stayed because she wanted to, because watching was easier than leaving, because Christmas meant she wouldn't be alone. And that raises a question I've never been able to answer. Do you think she was protecting the house? Or waiting for someone to replace her? Because land doesn't just remember people. It teaches them how to stay. Somewhere out there tonight, lights are on in a window built on that same ground. Someone is standing in a quiet room, feeling that pressure they can't explain, convincing themselves it's nothing. And maybe it is. Or maybe it's just December. Next time, I'll tell you about another Christmas story. That one didn't involve watching. It involved knocking.